I come now to the matter of FCB. I want to draw your attention to the fact that last year the government decided to put some FCB shares out for public purchase as part of a broadening of the shareholding in the country, and it would have had the effect of strengthening our stock market, increasing the wealth of the citizenry, and so on and so on. There are two arguments to this. One is that government can retain the ownership, get the profits of FCB, and spend those profits on the wider national community as the government funds national service. Or the government could put some shareholding out so that individuals and agencies could, on their own, buy these shares and get the benefit of the ownership that they would have purchased. We in the PNM, we support the idea that some of these shareholding could be made available, because what that would do is to allow citizens to participate at their own personal level, where the wealth of the country, particularly from the energy sector, rather than being owned by persons outside of Trinidad and Tobago who own the companies that exploit these resources, we want to encourage our people to become owners of some of these resources as well. So we supported the IPO at FCB, and when the prospectus was put out and we saw what the ratio was for persons, individual citizens, as well as employees and so on, we made an intervention and objected to how it was done, because we thought that there was some kind of tokenism being offered to the citizenry, and we asked the Minister of Finance to revisit the prospectus if he could, and to ensure that the public gets a fair and transparent shot at these shares. I draw your attention to an Express article which covered our concern on July 22nd, 2013, where we took issue and cautioned about how these shares were being distributed. And we said then, as reported in the Express, that the PNM supports no business model which could see the average citizen purchaser being restricted to a token shareholding. It is the PNM's view and established policy that any opportunity for ownership of state enterprise resources should be done in a manner to encourage the widest possible effective participation by all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Against this background, we were concerned about some things, and we called on the Minister of Finance to revisit the situation at FCB. Lo and behold, the annual report of FCB comes out recently. And in this office, the first thing that attracted our attention is that we saw where it is reported the shareholdings of directors and managers are reported in that annual report. And what jumped out at us is that one manager, who I will call a mid-level manager, because he's not a top manager, a mid-level manager at FCB, is now, according to that report, the owner of 695,000 shares of FCB. Immediately our concern is, were these acquisitions done within the context of the allocation to staff? And if so, under what circumstances did a member of staff end up with that humongous block of shares? It might have been that the staff member had bought them on the exchange, but the public revelations don't confirm that. And subsequently, we've heard from the bank that the shares were obtained within the original allocation. But more disturbingly, when we called on the bank to make a statement to clarify this, the bank's statement said that all employees of FCB who wanted shares got their allocation, and therefore there should be nobody in FCB complaining as to getting less shares than they had applied for. Well, we are being told here at this office by some people of the bank, employees, that they did not get all that they expected to get or wanted to get. They were limited by some formula. So there is need for clarification here. And secondly, we want to find out if this distribution of shares in whatever system which allowed one individual to end up with this block of shares, when the average citizen who had made a request would have been limited to something in the order of 10 or 12,000 shares or thereabouts at most. How did it happen that this one individual ended up with all these shares? And if it is, we want to know how much of those shares were of the subsidized nature of the 1980, because employees got their shares at a subsidized price. We want to know how much of that block was from that subsidized formula. We also wanted to know if the shares as obtained by this manager are still with him, because our information at this office is that the shares have been sold, and we want to know under what circumstances they were sold, so that the owners, so that the original owners will know what has happened to the wealth that was transferred from the state to persons who are beneficiaries of this block of shares. Because you see, up until the day of the IPO, the value of these shares belonged to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. The IPO was in fact a transfer of wealth from the state to citizens for a fee. And it is therefore imperative that that transfer be transparent, it be fair, and be free of any kind of manipulation. And that is why today we support the position taken by the Minister of Finance that the matter be subject to a forensic investigation. But we go further. That investigation must determine all circumstances and identify all decision making within the bank which allowed this to develop, and that the report be made available to the public immediately upon its submission to the Minister of Finance. Because this is a matter which has serious consequences for how we treat with the state sector and any further distribution of state wealth to the public. We are on the verge, we're being told, of IPO submissions, and a prospectus is now being designed for Phoenix gas processors. I would hate to think that some kind of development like this would take place at Phoenix gas processors, and some other lucky individual will end up in this fortunate position while the rest of us have to look on and admire their success. What is disturbing about this is that the bank, in responding to this worrisome revelation, is advising us that there are legalities that would have prevented the bank from limiting the amount of shares an employee in the bank could have got, and therefore the bank was powerless to prevent any wealthy person from acquiring any block of shares like the particular block under discussion. And if that is true, then it means that Phoenix gas processors, as they proceed with their IPO, if they're bound by law not to be able to limit it, that the same kind of loophole and the same kind of arrangement, and I dare say there's a strong view among the public which is expressed to this office, that this could not have happened without the cooperation of more than one person. A number of persons are involved here for this to happen. And the bank tells us that it is confident that nothing is amiss. They check certain things and were happy with it. We want them to share with us the information that made them comfortable. Make the public comfortable too. Share with the public the information that made the bank comfortable that nothing was wrong with this. Because until that is done, there will be a serious question mark over this landmark IPO, which was supposed to be the beginning of a wealth growing exercise in the country, where the population over time would be encouraged to buy into these profit-making entities so as to ensure that the widest participation takes place in economic development coming from the state sector. We have to get this right, and this is a matter of questions over the confidence of one of our main enterprises. So, yes, investigation to be had quickly, and the information to be shared, and the investigation to be comprehensive with respect to the decision making and how this happened. We saw the statement from the bank, by way of the chairman, I think it is, telling us all that didn't happen, telling us all laws that were not violated, but it does not tell us how it happened. We need to be told how it happened, not how it didn't happen.